This is a short story that I wrote called Made Not Born. He was born Jack DeSimone, though he grew up under the name White. He was from the capital of the world, New York City, hadn't spent much time there. His father's name still echoed through the halls of government buildings and illegal gambling dens alike, but it didn't matter. He was gone, never known outside of photo albums and mentions in crime documentaries. Jack still wondered what he was truly like, occasionally. They left the capital of the world after his father had gone away, forever with his associates. A new world awaited the young family, to the north of the Great Lake Erie, Hamilton. It was not nearly as big as New York, though it somehow managed to preserve the same grimy urban culture in a 20th of its size. They took the name White from his mother, a Scottish surname. His paternal side despised it and its lack of connection to the sunny peninsula which they had once called home. Jack liked it. Jack's mother had not gone away like his father, but she was no more there than he was. She seemed to make very quick friends with the hard drugs and various unsuitable bachelors of her new city. Sometimes they weren't bachelors. Jack remembered a night early in his life. One of his mother's friends, as she called them, had paid them a visit. A trip to the hospital and 4 weeks in a cast. His mother liked to pretend nothing had ever happened to him. It was easy with the drugs. Instead of ripping her apart from the outside, they tore at her from the inside, slowly draining the life from her every minute of every day, her empathy, her joy, her guilt. She would spend hours sitting on the couch, some staring, sometimes at the window, sometimes at the ceiling or at the floor, but the expression was always the same, blank, empty, as if her soul was gone, thousands of miles away, leaving a shallow, quiet husk in its place, gray and withering, shining blonde hair now dark, bright blue eyes now cloudy. As a boy, Jack hated conflict. His early days were spent wandering about the grimy streets of the city he now called home, splashing in puddles and exploring the little bits of wilderness he could find in between the hard concrete. Television programs fueled his imagination, bringing him to the tallest mountains of Central Asia, to the lush jungles of the Amazon. Steve Irwin was his favorite. He loved to imagine he was somewhere else, someone else. He crafted the most grand ideas a young boy could have ever imagined. The fastest in the class, the one everyone loved, easygoing, talkative. He lived in a large white palace in the jungle, laden with trampolines, McDonald's combo meals, and Bengal tigers to keep him company. Reality was not nearly as grand. They sneered at him, looked down their noses at him. It was as if they wanted to insult him, but didn't. It was worse that way. It left the insults up to his own mind, and his mind never held back. Loser! Worthless freak! Worthless fuck! Never included, never sought out by anyone. The hours blended into each other under the soulless hum of fluorescent lights. He spent them drawing and writing, losing himself in his own mind. The teachers never helped, only scolded. He didn't do what he was told, not up to par. A failure by the standards of the education system. It seemed as though there were always clouds that loomed over the cesspit the White family called home. Gray, with spindles of black twirled throughout them. Unlike the old home, there is no hope here. No grand dream that people chased despite their misery. It had fled with the factories many years earlier, leaving everything else behind to rot. One could feel it in the cracked sidewalks, see it in the decaying warehouses. The neighborhood was being cleared of Italians, though some old-timers still clung to their traditional abodes. Now new people were moving in, from the inner city. They brought spice and drums, drugs and violence. Jack rarely spoke, preferring his own mind over the mess and pain of dealing with another, and he was fine with that, until he wasn't. Until he began to feel a new pain, not like the one he had been introduced to by his mother's friends, but a different kind. It didn't come from a muscle or a bone. It came from within. Something deeper. Some kind of longing he couldn't quite place. He tried to ignore it. As time wore on, his heart began to change. It grew darker. It grew bitter. School taught Jack the importance of obedience and conformity, and his exact position outside of it. The unwritten rules present in every hour he endured there, in that big building reminiscent of the steelworks that pump thick black smog into the heart of the city, forcing it through the pipes beneath the ground, into the sinks, the bathtubs, and the taps of its residents. They all breathed it in, sucked it deep into their lungs where it burned and blackened and numbed their flesh. Most didn't even know, didn't want to know, or had given up trying to know anything, becoming accustomed to that sooty numbness. Jack held his breath. Joey was also from the capital of the world, and he acted like it. Some semblance of a father figure, he always seemed to have everything figured out. He hadn't breathed in the smog, and he'd come out the other side. He flashed his money around as if he were offering Kleenexes to a horde of Claritin addicts in need of a fix. Jack admired his older cousin, who could be just as quick with a witty remark as he could with a word of comfort or compassion. When they were together, Jack felt as though he had some place in the world where he wasn't cast to the side. For once, he could sit in the audience, or even take center stage at times. On certain days, he was the main act. Jack frequently told his cousin of his challenges with the rest of the world, and much to his surprise, Joey relayed similar experiences from his own youth. You and me, we're different, he would say. Doesn't mean they're better, the opposite. We come from a different line of people who had the balls to make something of themselves, be somebodies in a world of nobodies. He spoke with such passion, with such conviction. We're the ones that rule the world. They're the ones that run it. Anybody tells you different, you do what I showed you, okay? And he did. His first fight was on the second day of ninth grade. His second not long after that. It felt good in the moment, as if a floodgate had opened and let out a deep, dark sea of built-up anger. It came surging out of his fists and feet, crashing with mighty fury into anyone unfortunate enough to get in its way. After the rush was over, however, and the anger had dried into the ground, he was left with that same pain he couldn't quite place. His heart ached and cried. It sobbed rivers of tears in the loneliness of the kitchen late at night, above the boiling pot of pasta water, under the Italian flag that hung proudly in the back of the house, next to the husk of the mother who had long since gone. As the man Jack was becoming, he learned to endure conflict, embrace it, appreciate it, his heart numbed by every punch he threw. Joey was quick to inform him that he was moving up in the world. A world that had once been so vibrant, even in its grayness, had long gone dull. He didn't like to imagine he was anywhere else anymore. He was here, and he was here alone. What did it mean to be an Italian in Canada? What is that? Hundreds of years of traditions to end up in a place like this? Hardly a past and nothing of a future. Buildings on an open plain, separated only by the icy waters of the Great Lakes. Was he American? Canadian? He certainly did not enjoy the culture of the Great White North, but he did not know much of his ancestral home either. The nights and the days blended into each other, long walks under open skies and endless thunderstorms. Fight after fight, his muscles sore and bruised, his face bloodied and battered, crumbling factories, dying delicatessens. He liked these places. There was more soul in their hollow shells than he could ever find in the rows and rows of lockers and the loudness and pretension of the prison he attended for 7 hours a day. Stale Sunday sauce, endless nights filled with The Sopranos, the bickering, the violence, the decay. The Italian story? Joey felt the show was too exaggerated. He enjoyed the fruits of his labor, the cars, the money, the women. The fun never ended. When that man walked into a room, every pair of eyes was on him. He owned that bar, or that drug den, or that restaurant. For those moments, those seconds where everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to him, where he was the sole focus. That confirmed it. More powerful than all the money, all the status and grades and sexual partners and parties and drugs and everything else. That glance. Joey was breathing real air, and, for the first time, Jack could see it. Jack remembered very clearly the night of his 12th grade prom. He hadn't gone. No one missed him. The first snow of the season had begun to fall, locking the misery and decay into a frozen hibernation of sorts. It felt as though nothing was moving. Joey serenaded his young cousin with his typical speeches of government corruption and true free will as they drove down the quiet, icy street. It came to a stop abruptly, however, when his cousin spotted a familiar face walking alongside the frozen sidewalk. A face Jack had seen many times before, but never bothered to get to know. A look came over his cousin, an expression he had never seen before. He ordered Jack to accompany him as he exited their vehicle. The shouting, the begging, it was as if the outside world had ceased to exist. Jack remembered the first punch his cousin threw, The first crunch of the man's nose, the blood that erupted from it as his head slammed into the cold concrete behind. It ran down his face, his chest, to the white powder beneath, melting it as if it were scalding lava from a volcano. The second strike, the third, more lava. The man had stopped saying anything by the fifth punch, seemingly resigned to his fate, maybe praying to some god, remembering an old flame. He looked at what he thought was his cousin, but instead saw a twisted mask of fury and pleasure. The mask turned back to him, changing its expression. It almost took on a look of concern. "You want to rule the world?" Jack didn't know. "You want to be a somebody? You got to do hard things. You want to end up like the rest of these schmucks? You want to be like them?" Jack returned his gaze to the crumpled mass on the sidewalk. "Finish it." What was left of his heart screamed and begged, desperately trying to claw its way out of his ribcage to his mind, but his resolve was hardened. He knew his cousin was right. The first stomp shocked him. He had no idea how delicate the human face was. It crunched beneath his soul, like stepping on a pile of twigs. His heart still shouted. Another stomp, more crunching. Another stomp. The blood was pooling now. Another and another and another. He stopped when the crunching stopped, when the mess beneath his blood-stained boot resembled something out of a meat grinder than a human being. A pat on the back and a kiss on the cheek. "Welcome to your new life." He no longer liked the name White. It felt out of date. He no longer had to ignore his heart. It had gone quiet. He knew what his father was truly like now.